I heard moaning sounds coming from the maid's room, so I boldly kicked the door open, only to be left in shock at the sight inside. With the help of friends, I hired a maid who was 7 years older than me. She had come from a difficult life in the countryside and decided to work in the city. The maid told me about her circumstances. She was married with 2 children, but both she and her husband had to work far away to support their aging parents in the countryside. Despite her kind and hard-working nature, I developed a fondness for her and frequently arranged visits for her to see her children. Recently, I brought the maid back to her hometown for a visit. As I couldn't find my child's shoes, I searched the entire house, including the maid's room. To my astonishment, I found my child's shoes on the maid's bed and an unexpected item on the bedside table. There lay a daily birth control pill pack that had been used. Although it was partially covered, I could still see it. I was stunned and silent. Thoughts of the maid having an affair with my husband raced through my mind. Indeed, although lean, the maid was older than my husband. She had the mature allure of a woman. Since I had recently given birth and couldn't fulfill my marital duties, perhaps my husband sought comfort from the maid? However, I hadn't noticed anything unusual between my husband and the maid. I decided to find an opportunity to expose them. On that day, the maid returned to work, and my husband had just returned from a business trip. I told him I would take our child to visit my parents, and he simply nodded. I thought that when I left, they would definitely engage in an affair. Therefore, I quickly sent our child to my parents and returned home to catch my husband in the act of infidelity. When I arrived home, my husband was nowhere to be found. My heart ached, and I approached the maid's room. As I got closer, I heard a distinct and sensitive sound. I searched for the spare key, forcefully unlocked the door, and kicked it open. But as I witnessed the scene inside, I was paralyzed with shock. The person embracing the maid was not my husband, but my father-in-law. It turned out that after sending me and our child away, my husband had gone to the office and instructed the maid not to come home for dinner. That's why my father-in-law took the opportunity to visit immediately afterward. However, the situation became even more complicated when, before returning home, I had called my mother-in-law to accompany me. My mother-in-law went crazy, rushing in to both hit my husband and pull the maid's hair. I panicked and tried to intervene, but it was too late. I urgently called my husband to come home. Afterwards, of course, my mother-in-law expelled the maid from the house. My father-in-law looked furious and coldly stared at me. I hesitated to look at my husband. I knew my suspicions were wrong, but how could things have turned out this way? But the most shocking part was that, because of my foolish actions, my father-in-law declared that he would not give my husband the